2024 had dozens of movies I found to be excellent. However, it also had some movies I found to be really terrible. For my top 10 list of the worst films I saw in 2024, I'm only going to cover movies that were released in a large amount of theaters or were released from major streaming companies. No straight to Tubi, no zero-budget VOD, so I guess I'll mention the two films that I would put here if I was as dishonorable mentions, those being Angels Fallen, Warriors of Peace, and Snatched. Now, on with the list. Number 10. RedOne is a film that I really wanted to like. I'm a fan of pretty much everyone involved, except Chris Evans, who I only really liked in 2 movies, but this was just so disappointing. I found RedOne to be an insufferably boring and ugly slog. The film looks gross. The scene with the snowmen was pretty cool, I guess, but outside that, RedOne just left me kinda cold. Number 9. If is a film that genuinely made me angry in my chair as I watched it. It felt like a series of emotional manipulations presented as a family movie. It also doesn't help that I can't stand Ryan Reynolds. I like some of the If designs, mainly Blossom and that Mr. Renner looking guy whose name I don't care to look up. I didn't care about the characters or what was happening, so a lot of the drama just felt kind of pointless to me. The movie's countless attempts to make you tear up in your seat just came off as cloying and forced. Sorry, John Krasinski, please do better next time. Number 8. What is there left to say about Joker Folie à Deux at this point? It's a clumsy sequel with a boring story made by people who were way too confident that anything they made was going to work. This is evident with the lack of test screenings that were taken. There was none. I'm not going to blame WB for never interfering, as I'm anti-studio interference all the way. If this wasn't made as a fuck you to the studio for forcing Todd Phillips to make another one, I'm going to take it as Phillips being way too confident that he can make anything and it would be amazing, following the first film. I understand to an extent why this film has its fans. I just could never be one of them. I don't like this film at all. I think it's a terrible musical and a really bad drama. And Lady Gaga's performance was really disappointing, as she is barely in the film. If you want to see Lady Gaga give a good performance that isn't in A Star is Born, check out House of Gucci. I really like that film. Number 7. Luckily for me, I missed most of the bad horror this year, stuff like Imaginary, Afraid, and Night Swim. Or, in the case of Tarot, I actually quite liked it. The one horror entry on this list is The Strangers Chapter 1. This was a film that I was very excited for. I enjoy some of Renny Harlin's work and the previous 2 Strangers movies, so I was curious to see how he would fare on this franchise. I thought it was a pretty interesting move. However, the film he provided us with was extremely generic and really hard to sit through. This was a chore. I'll watch the other 2 when they release, just out of hopes that they'll be better than this. Number 6. I hope you dance as well as you dress, because Argyle is number 6, another one of my biggest disappointments of the year. From my enjoyment of Matthew Vaughn's other works to the stacked cast, there is no way that this should have gone wrong. But I do have an idea of why it did. The first is the humor. Are you sick of MCU humor? Then Argyle is going to be your worst fucking nightmare. Another is I think it comes down to the PG-13 rating. I mean, come on, this is Matthew Vaughn. He's the guy behind Kick-Ass and Kingsman. He needs that R rating. That being said, I doubt he would have gotten the budget on that rating, because this movie cost $200 million. I hope to never see you on this side of my yearly ranking again, Mr. Vaughn. Please, I know you can do better than this. We all know you can do better than this. Number 5. Ever heard of Not Another Church Movie? No? Well, did you want a Medea parody years after Medea stopped being relevant? No? Well, I guess you won't like this movie. Somehow, this managed to be as boring as the movies it was parodying. I don't like the Medea films at all, but I can also acknowledge that I'm not really in the target market for them. Would that make me in the target market for this? I don't know, but what I do know is that I thought this movie was really, really bad. It wasn't funny, it was boring, and this does technically count for the list, despite my one rule, because this was released in over 1,000 theaters. I know it may not seem like it, but it was. It was put out by Briarcliff Entertainment and was in over 1,000 theaters and made $576,000 from those theaters, therefore counting for this list. Number 4. Like The Strangers Chapter 1, Borderlands has a director I like behind the camera. This time it's Eli Roth, who's directed some of my favorite horror films of the 2000s. However, I knew from a mile away this was going to be a disaster, but I watched it anyway. I thought this was a terrible action movie and a terrible comedy, and the first time I've disliked an Eli Roth film. Disappointing and terrible. Terrible action, nothing performances outside Gina Gershon, who's barely in the film. She's Mad Moxie. if you didn't know that, because I don't think they really marketed the movie on her, because I know she's not really a bankable star, but I really like her. Y'all should watch Bound. Anyway, I hope Roth sticks to low-budget horror, as he's way better at that. Number 3. Mufasa the Lion King is a dull slog of a movie with ugly, uninteresting, photorealistic animals, but nice environments. Basically, it's 2024's Dinosaur. Lin-Manuel Miranda phones in his 20 billionth Disney contracted soundtrack, and this is up there for the worst one. Between this and Little Mermaid 2023 for me when it comes to his stuff. And I don't like him. I'll just make that abundantly clear. I do not like Lin-Manuel Miranda's style, and I think it is at its worst here. Uninspired, boring. The villain says bye-bye because he can't say kill in the villain song, and that's really, really silly in a bad way. I really hated watching this. Horizon and American Saga was an hour longer, but felt an hour and a half shorter. The only positives were the paychecks to Aaron Pierre and Barry Jenkins. Number 2. What the fuck are we doing here? What compelled me to watch Uglies? I think it was late at night and I wanted to see what McG was up to. Remember McG? The guy who did the 2 Charlie's Angels movies? Yeah, he's doing this now. Stuck in the Netflix slot mines. I don't like Joey King at all. I especially don't like her here. I thought her performance was really bad. I remember Stan Twitter making jokes calling her casting fitting because she's in the ugly group of people that are lower in society, and people were saying that was fitting because I think it was her politics. Maybe they just don't find her attractive. It might have been a mix of both. But yeah, that was kind of funny, but I don't really want to get into that. The writing sucks. The performances are terrible. And I just don't think the concept of the Uglies books works in film, really. This was really bad and also really late, because weren't the Uglies books from the 2000s? Finally, number 1. How does this get a theatrical release? How did theaters allow this? Falun Gong's Epic Times got a film in 2,500 theaters, and that film is The Firing Squad, starring washed-up hack Kevin Sorbo and Oscar-nominating Diddy accomplice and Norbit star Cuba Gooding Jr. This is a film about drug traffickers turning to God while they're incarcerated in Indonesia on death row. It has terrible acting, terrible green screen, and a story only your grandma can love. This genuinely might be the Room of Faith films, and I would recommend throwing it on at your next bad movie night. I watched it with some friends, and it was hilarious. Watch for imperfections in the green screen and stuff like that, and just have a good time. It's terrible, but it's funny. But I'm confident in calling it the worst film of the year that was either put out by a major streaming studio or was theatrically released. So yeah, that was my list. Feel free to leave a comment telling me that I'm fucking stupid or whatever, because your favorite movie of the year is on here. I won't judge. I hope people like these movies. I don't want anyone to dislike a movie. So yeah, y'all have a good one.